Hello and welcome to the Adrian Bo Podcast, the interview series where we take a deep dive into some of the most influential minds in real estate. Episode 216, Adrian Bo Podcast, the interview series, of course, and I'm welcomed by the lovely Kate Woods. Kate, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. So nice to see you.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I thought we'd mix it up a little bit today. I do get quite an eclectic mix of guests on the podcast, and I know you're a follower, which is great, and a listener, so thank you. So there's been such an evolution of our industry in terms of teams, as you know, and your current position, which I know quite intimately, but I really would love our audience to get to know not just yourself, but also how you work. 'Cause it is a little bit different to most what we call associates, if you like, within teams. You're 27. You're part of Ric Serrao's team at Raine Horne Double Bay, and Ric's obviously sat in the hot seat, as you know, previously. And in saying that, though, even though internally we use the jargon or the rhetoric, associate agent, as far as the market's concerned, in your case, you are a sales agent because you're one of very few, in my opinion, that I'm exposed to anyway, that I coach, that is capable of listing and doing vendor management, okay? Because many of my clients who are associates are very capable of doing everything else. And there's a lot. That's a lot. And that's no disrespect to them, and it's not a relegation of them, but the listing component and the vendor management seems to be more of an art form where buyer work, email inquiries, lead generation, etc., seems to be much easier to grasp. So do you mind if I just ask, when I don't normally ask these questions, but I think in your case it is important, when and how you first got into real estate?
So I first got into real estate, well, I was introduced to it when I was 13. My dad took me to an auction for the house around the corner, and I just remembered the vibe and, watching people bid and seeing the environment and how happy they were at the end when they got the house.
Yes.
And I just thought, wow, how cool is that? People get to be immersed in all of that. And then from there, I always said I wanted to do real estate.
From 13?
From 13.
And what suburb was that in?
That was in Bronte.
Do you remember the agent or auctioneer?
No, I don't. I don't actually.
But it was exciting, right?
Yeah. And then when I was in year 12, I got my certificate of registration. And then I
didn't realise you could do that in year 12.
Maybe it was year 12, or maybe it was just I was 18 already in year 12.
Oh, okay.
So I think it was just on the back half of that. And then I was doing open for inspections just on Saturdays.
Right.
And then I was doing that just for a smaller company. And then my parents said, you have to go to uni. So
okay. Because of siblings, or
no,
they're
just
they're an academia
as a
fan.
backfill, which I appreciate.
Yeah.
So I did that, and I just chose the degree at the time that was the closest thing to real estate, which was property economics.
Yes.
So I did
that.
That was at UTS.
UTS, yeah.
And then the last year I decided to go part-time.
Yeah.
And then I got my license, and then I was working at a property development company for about 3-4 months.
Which one was that?
That was the Crown Group.
Oh, right, yeah.
And then, look,
𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐞𝐬𝐭𝐚𝐦𝐩𝐬, and then that just for me, I just wasn't quite right. And then COVID hit, and then I was working at a cafe, and then I ran into a gentleman I used to go to school with, and he was looking for an associate. So and I just said, perfect timing. I had everything that I needed. Who was that just back then? Was that Ric, or that was a different company?
No, that was at my previous work.
Previous role, okay. And from that role, then did you join Raine Horne, or was there other?
So from that role, I was there for about 2.5 years, and then another opportunity popped up, and I've been with Ric now for just over 3 years.
Okay. And your first role as a quote-unquote associate, was that a hybrid role of admin and lead gen buyer work, or was it one or the other?
It was just lead gen.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. were you exposed to listing and vendor management that early in terms of was the lead agent, taking you to listing appointments and vendor meetings?
Yeah, there was a bit,
Okay,
definitely.
that's good.
A lot more now, obviously working for an agent that does a lot more volume, I guess, and I'm contributing a lot more because I've grown into an agent myself.
Yes. Okay. So at what point, because now that's 10 years ago because you're now 27?
No, that was only I've only been doing this now full time for 5 years.
Full time. Okay, yeah, because you had
because I went to uni in between.
Did you finish the degree?
Yeah.
You did. Okay, good. All right, so in terms of getting to where we are now, and you and I, how long were you and I been intimately working together in terms of like a year or a bit over?
Say a year.
Yeah, a year or a bit over. Okay. At what point from being like in those roles that you had, including your current one, at what point did you first start going to even just market appraisals on your own without a lead agent?
I was already doing that at my previous role, but just one-offs, but properly full-time probably in the last 2.5 years.
Okay. And you found that doing either price checks or market appraisals, people call them two different things, that definitely was a good breeding ground to then nexus into proper official listing presentations as well?
Well, you have to learn by getting thrown in the deep end, right? I think the first one probably wasn't pretty, nor was the second one. But as over time, it's definitely now it's improved quite a lot. Yeah,
interesting. Yeah, so I genuinely believe that the agents in your role that play your role are the unsung heroes of the industry. I really do, because there's so much heavy lifting done by whether we just call them associates, but really what they are co-agents to most lead agents, right? There's so much heavy lifting, and I genuinely feel, I'm not necessarily talking about you in particular, but just as a generalization in the industry, that you're underappreciated, under-acknowledged, sometimes under-remunerated. But in saying that, now with the emergence of super teams and any lead agent or principal that listens to me, the associates or co-agents can be very, very well remunerated. That's why a lot of them stay on doing what they do for a lot longer, because they know that, going out on your own, quote unquote, is not that much different, because the market still sees you as an agent. You're still getting profile, you're still able to list, etc. But there are that section of people in your role that don't have the ability to list or the skill set to list, and don't have the ability or skill set to vendor manage. How did you get exposed to that? Was it something that you were taught directly, or was it something you just listened and then practiced? I know we've been doing a lot of work, in the last 12 months together on it, but initially, because there's still some people that have been in the industry perhaps double the amount of time you have, are older than you, and are still not listing on their own and vendor managing on their own. I'm not saying everyone, but there is a large section of the industry that is simply either not capable or don't want to, you know. So I'd be really interested to see at what age and why and how that you started to get exposed to that.
So I think we have this apprenticeship in entrepreneurship, right?
Yes.
Which is what we do. I think working for Ric has been fantastic, because he's let me be me and doesn't micromanage, which I think has been super helpful. And, he wants us to become our own agents. And I think, how we got there is I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of real estate books. So I take a lot of things, just to take one different thing from everyone and kind of then form it into your own.
Yeah.
Going to listing appointments with other agents, going to appraisals with other agents in our office, I think was super helpful as well, because everyone does things differently.
Yeah.
I think, and, just backing myself and, this is what I want to do. I want to be here. I have a degree, but yet I've chosen to still come back and do real estate. I've got a passion for it. I'm, sickly obsessed with it. And, if you're not obsessed with it, then how are you going to, beat the next guy?
Yeah. So when you first started getting exposed to listing appointments, at what point, did you start going on your own to proper listing? Was it that about a couple of years ago now?
Yeah, I'd say 2 years ago.
Okay.
I grew up around the East, so I've got quite a good sphere of influence and network around the East. So I did start getting call-ins.
Yes. When people saw that you were in real estate,
when people saw, people heard word of mouth. Put it on social media.
Yeah.
And friend of a friend, wanted to list, and I got referred in. And I remember speaking to Ric about it, and Ric said, "No, like you go yourself, you back yourself."
Yeah.
And again, it's just getting thrown in the deep end, and you can't expect it to be perfect.
Yeah.
And no listing presentation is the same, so you can go in with a list of things and you don't tick anything off.
Yeah.
And I think just from then, once you've done one, if you back yourself, you can keep doing more. And you can't grow if you keep taking someone in with you and letting them just lead the appointment and you just sitting back. Yeah.
And because your degree was property related, do you find that you're able to transplant or transport any of the learnings into your day-to-day works today?
To be honest, not really, but it does give me a point of difference.
Yes.
And it is a unique selling point.
Absolutely.
That, I have hunger, I have drive, I have completed it.
Yes.
And I guess, it's just another,
It's the discipline of completing it. And you would be an outlier in the industry. I know for me it was a massive USP, which either resonated with some people or they didn't care. But I mean, the fact that you've got and the majority industry don't, I think it definitely helps. You talked about social media there. What's one positive with social media, with real estate, and what's one negative in your mind that you can think of off the top of your head?
Positive, I think, is I'll post a story, and I posted a story of this house that we listed last week in Bondi, and I had 3 siblings message me saying, "Oh, we know someone that's looking for that."
Wow.
And that person actually did end up buying the property.
Really?
So I think they got notified a little bit earlier. I think now everyone is on social media.
Yeah.
So again, it's a good and a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I think the reach that you have from it, and the positivity that comes from it, is awesome.
Yeah.
But then it's a double-edged sword, because on the other side there's just a lot of negativity on there. So I try not to go on it too much.
What is one, like for someone your age and being in real estate, what is one of the dark sides of social media, do you think?
Just comparison,
yes.
I would say. I think, when you go on and you see how well everyone's doing, it's amazing. And then you kind of reflect and you look back and say, oh, okay, well, have I done that? Have I matched that? Am I doing better? And I think as long as you just run your own race and, I look at those things, I go, I'm happy for you. And, I'm happy where I am, and we can all be doing better.
Yes.
But I think, this job is you got to stay centered.
Yeah.
And just be content, or learn to be content, or try to be content.
That's right. What have I taught you about comparison though?
That it's the thief of joy.
Yeah, that's right. Because you're always comparing your chapter 2 to someone's chapter 10 or 8 or whatever it might be.
And, it's unlikely that everyone started at the same time, has the same experience, has sold the same amount of properties. So it's irrelevant. Yeah.
Not to mention some social media posts can be fiction as well.
Yeah,
not in terms of like in a duplicitous way, but someone's, little snippet or vignette of their life may not be a true reflection.
You're only seeing 1%, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, the positive side of social media. Then people say, oh, you don't get listings or sell property off social media. I mean, you just rattled off a recent anecdote right there where you literally sold. Where was that? That
was in Bondi. I think I'm also of the age where a lot of my friends are looking for property, or know someone that's looking for property.
Yeah.
And so everyone, they might not be looking for property, but I post something and they've got an interest in it. And they want to know what things have gone for. So it's super helpful as well. It's better than, it's much quicker and easier than them trying to pick up the phone, give me a call, or they're busy, I'm busy. So it works really well.
Yeah. And do you have a personal and a work Insta account, or just have one?
I just have the one.
Yeah, yeah. That's, I find, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I think that's best practice, because authenticity is obviously, even though it's a bit of a buzzword and a cliche, it still is anyone that you speak to about social media, what's the most important component of is authenticity. And people not only want to know who you are as an agent, but who you are as a person as
exactly.
well. So, if you are, and I know you do combine it, which is I think is great, in terms of this keeping on social media there, have you utilized it in the sense from a work point of view? Because I know you guys have got a product in the office where you're actually just directly marketing property as well. Do you find that works quite effectively?
Yeah, I think in combination.
Yeah.
So
the organic stuff.
Correct.
Plus
I think as a combination, and then everyone shares it within the team. It gets good reach, good shares, and then again, as it comes back around, people then reach out to us from social media, which I think is great.
And is that on every campaign you guys do that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, yeah. You mentioned previously about growing up in the East, and this is a very common question I get asked, as a coach and someone's been in the industry a long time. Look, I know the answer, but I also know of examples where it still happens to be a successful agent who wasn't immersed in their area. But luckily for me, I went to Waverley College, and for the first 10 years of my career, there was a lot of connection through parents and referrals and things. There's no doubt that it helps, right? Like, have you found that just knowing the geography, knowing the sphere of influence, and just the referral network has given you a slight competitive advantage?
Yes, I would say so. But I think it's also about, knowing the local market, and, I guess more so about growing up is the competitive advantage about, all the shortcuts, where the shops are, who lives next door, who's looking for this, how many buyers could I have that I could bring through tomorrow. It definitely helps. Yeah.
But you don't think someone's disadvantaged if they choose an area where they don't have any roots, for example?
No, not at all. I just think you should pick an area and really farm that area and get to know the ins and the outs, and pick a local coffee shop and hang out there, go for a walk around. I mean, I'm operating out of the Bondi office at the moment, and I'll go for a walk around the block once a day, and that, sometimes I get more success out of 1 hour of prospecting.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah.
I know I was pushing to get that Bondi office open for 12 months, which is great. It's such a good location, though, and it just makes so much sense. Like,
even people just walking past go, oh, you know what, need to call them.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Love it. So your observation of the industry in terms of these team structures, so you're like the Ric Serrao super team, I like to call it that.
He'll hate the word team.
What does he like to call it?
We just operate
together.
Operate
together, yeah. Okay. So let's call it the group. It's almost sort of perfect in the sense of its personnel. Like, you've got Grace as the business manager, you got yourself and Steve as agents, internally sometimes we call them associate agents, sometimes we call them co-agents or whatever, and then Ric that runs around like a headless chook and just is the rainmaker, know. Do you think that a lot of the day is productive chaos, and but in saying that, does it still manage to work?
I'd say organized chaos.
Yeah.
It does. It works really well. I mean, Grace is the backbone of our team.
Yeah.
If we need anything, we'll call her. She'll answer straight away. She'll put out any fires. It is productive. I think, we've all learned how each of us operate and what we need and what we require, and how we need to be calmed down in certain situations, and how do we, G each other up.
Yeah.
So I think, we've got a really good synergy at the moment, and it's really working for us.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And in terms of the work that we've been doing together, how have you found the accountability process? Because it does polarize people. There's a lot of people who don't either submit the right numbers or don't like submitting the numbers because it's like, wasn't that good this week?
Yeah.
Or it was since you've been doing it, how have you found it? Has it changed your approach or your productivity at all?
Look, numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So, if I've had a terrible or an average week, I'll tell you, and then you'll come back to me and say, hey, numbers are a bit low. How, what happened? And I don't know.
Was this week, I think.
That was this week.
What did I say? Slightly below average.
Slightly below average.
Okay.
But we'll make up for it in other weeks. And I think, it's all about, as you said, it's being accountable. And, everyone has bad days.
Yeah.
Everyone has bad weeks. But as long as you acknowledge that bad week and you put it behind you and you move on,
yeah.
I think it's good, because we can actually look at them, come back, have a look and see how we've been going over the past couple months.
Yeah.
And then, it's a long game.
Yeah.
And I feel that, stuff that I've been doing 6 months ago is only coming into fruition now. Stuff I was doing 12 months ago is only coming into fruition now. So if you had a bad week, you might not notice it tomorrow, but down the path, you'll see it.
Yeah. And what advice would you give other agents in your position who don't have a weekly accountability process?
I think, you don't have to have a mentor to be accountable to someone. You can be accountable to one of your mates. You can be accountable to someone in the office. You can be accountable to even your parents or a support network that you have. But I think if you don't have that, then, it's a piece of the puzzle that's really imperative, I think, and keeps you, as you said, keeps you accountable. Otherwise, you'll lose track and you don't know where you are.
But why weekly? Why do you think weekly is important?
Because I feel like monthly just drags out.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's only 12 times.
Yes.
And, 4 weeks of the year we're off, so that's 11, and you can't change it. I feel it's much harder to change.
Yes.
If it's only, so on a weekly, you can pick up your performance straight away when you can see that you're being down. Whereas if you go monthly, if you haven't had a good month, we'll pick it up next month, haven't had a good month, and then it's just not going to work.
Do you mind sharing with the audience what your weekly KPIs are that I allocated you?
So we change them to METs.
Yeah, which is minimum expectation targets rather than KPIs.
Yeah, so we do, it's 4 appraisals a week, 1 listing appointment.
Yes.
New data entry, which is 10.
Yeah. And just explain new data to the people who don't know.
New data will be if you're, got an open home on the weekend and you've had 10 groups through and you've collected 2 new pieces of data, but that'll be not necessarily that what they're looking for. It'll be that they're actually living at an address.
Yeah.
And then that'll be populating that into your database.
Yeah. So they're a property owner in an area you can service effectively.
Yeah, correct. I'm trying to think what
the other one is the prospecting sprints, yeah?
Yeah, and so how many sessions that we do. Yeah. So I've got 7.
Yeah.
And that's, again, dependent on, how many properties we're running at the moment.
Yeah.
And, just try hit them every week or get as close to.
Yes, yes. And how have you found the dichotomy between what we talk about ad nauseum, which is like in-campaign prospecting versus database nurturing prospecting, which includes past appraisals, past buyers, past sellers, pipeline owners? How have you found that distinguishing those two?
Well, it's, sometimes you can say you're busy, but are you actually busy? Are you making the right, you can make 100 calls, but are they the right calls? I think, it's really important about, as you say, the two wheels.
The 2 wheels, yeah.
And, really dividing your time up between both of them because, as I said, you can, work your campaigns, but then if you're not, feeding your pipeline, then you're going to sell everything, but then nothing's going to come up for the next 3 months. And then it's a problem because you're only working one wheel when you need to be doing both. And it might not be even, but you've got to have a good balance between the two. Yeah.
And even though having weekly accountability is not the panacea and it's not perfect, but it helps just nudge you when you're off track.
Oh, definitely. Like on a Friday lunchtime, if I'm, assessing my week, I'm definitely not leaving early.
Yeah. And tell me, if you don't mind sharing, there was a period maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago where I think you got a bit off track, even just mentally, maybe. It might have been, you don't have to share the reason, but obviously this happens to everyone. How did you snap out of that funk? Because this sometimes for people it can be a day, a week, a month, or whatever. Or if you can share the reason if you want, but more importantly, like how you actually got out of it.
Look, there was no reason. I think, everyone goes through peaks and troughs, and it's just taking a step back and acknowledging, okay, I'm not feeling the best right now. Mm-hmm. What do I need to do? Do I need to take half a day off?
Yeah.
But I need to be at my best, because if I'm not, people remember how you make them feel, not what you say. So if I'm not doing that with my vendors, I'm not doing the right thing. So how did I get out of it? I just, remembered what I'm doing and why I do this and how happy it makes me feel. And then I kind of just snapped back into it.
Yeah. And did you find it easy for the mind wander and create excuses, such as like, maybe I'm, in the wrong area, the wrong business, the wrong brand. I'm too young, too old, like, did you find the mind wandering and that little voice in your head?
Yeah, of course. Of course. But, I'm quite lucky. I've got a good support system around me. And, I can speak freely and openly with everyone. Good. And, I just kind of, again, came back and stayed centered and just said, I love what I do. I believe in what I do. Yeah. I'm good at what I do. I looked at my reviews and I said, you know what? Good. We're going to keep going. Everyone has bad weeks.
Yeah. So true.
It's how you bounce back.
Yeah. As you know, I'm a advocate for women in real estate. I just think that it's so anemic. The gender balance is just ridiculous. And the main reason is, in terms of why I think women should be more involved in real estate, is that I think they're just innately better at it. You look at the handful of women, in the East, for example, that are really good at real estate. They're very good. They're up there with the best. And, I just think because they're innately more organised, innately have a better attention to detail, innately more trustworthy, innately have a better eye for design and that type of thing. So with all those obvious points, why is it then still a boys' club?
I don't know.
What's your gut feel? Why it's so heavily dominated by men? Do you think that rejection plays a role in some? And I'm not putting words in your mouth, but do you think that sometimes rejection can be hard? It could be hard on men. Like, I know some men that go to water with rejection. I know some women that thrive on it. Like, but I don't know. Is that a reason, or are they perhaps a little bit intimidated because it is a boys' club and it's hard to change that mold? Or
I don't know. I think it's it's a stigma. I think now I'd love to see more women come into it. Yeah. I think, if you are a female and you are thinking of doing it, it's hard work. Don't get me wrong. It's long hours. It's, you don't have all the best days, but at the same time, it's one of the most rewarding jobs. You get to change people's lives and change yours at the same time. And, down the track, if you want to change your life a little bit and you want to take a step back, if you want to focus on having children or something, it's a job that offers that flexibility as well, which I think is quite unique. And not all jobs have that, can offer that to women. But I think, when I'm in a listing appointment and I'm going up against a male, I think, it's I wouldn't say I necessarily have an advantage as being a female. I just think that it's not so much female male I don't know, but I think
a lot of times you go in with Steve as well, so that works well. The fact that it's a
that works a lot better. The female male dynamic works a lot better. But I think again, it's the most rewarding job, and I'd love for more females to be in it.
But do you agree with what I said in terms of how innately women are just far more equipped in terms of all those traits, like more organised, more attention to detail, more trustworthy?
I would agree with that, but I think there's a lot of, like, Steve in our team, he's also really good like that. Sure. And I think, we bounce well off each other, and he learns things from me and I learn things from him. Yeah.
What are you've got a lot of friends, because I know you're quite social. The other women your age that are in white-collar industry, what sort of industries are they involved in? And have you ever spoken to any of them about, like, getting into real estate? And has there been any commentary around, it may not be for me, it's a bit pushy, or the status of the industry is not great? I don't know. Is that potentially something?
I don't know. So I've got a couple of friends that work in marketing, a couple of friends that work in OT. Yeah. So I think a lot of them actually, they're not all in office jobs 9 to 5. Right. So I wouldn't necessarily say it's something linked to that. Yeah. My friends know how hard I work. Yeah.
Harder, like longer hours than them?
We work Saturdays, and for the last couple of months we've been working Sundays as well.
I don't like that. I know.
But while I'm young, I can. Yeah. And I think it is hard work. And
Yeah.
I think, unless, as I said, unless you're obsessed with it,
Yeah.
you're not going to enjoy it.
In terms of the ideal week and ideal day, there's so much talk about that in the industry, okay? What is a typical day look like for you? And I know Mondays look different to Fridays.
Yeah.
I get that. And Wednesdays or Thursdays are open house days or whatever. But just say outside of a Monday or outside of an open day, we don't have to talk about times, but just AM and PM, for example. What does it typically look like in terms of the specific tasks that you would usually be involved in?
So I'm up at 5.
Yep.
Go to the gym, come home, relax, unwind, and then I'll be in the office just before 8. And I'll just clear out my inbox. I'll check domain. I'll see what's been listed. Who do I need to contact? I'll look at my my to-dos and tick them off. If there's any outstanding tasks from the day before, any outline callbacks that need to be done, I'll do that. I'll try schedule all my appointments in the afternoon. So up until lunchtime, I try to be in the office, and then in the afternoon, then I'm moving around doing all my appointments. But as you said, look, no days are the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it sounds like AM energy is calling and building your business, and PM energy is dollar productive face to face.
But everyone's different. Like my mind, I'm better in the morning for doing that. So that's what I'll do. Some people only get the energy spurts in the afternoon, so they'll do that. But that's what works best for me.
Yeah.
And then I'll probably leave the office around 6:30. And I'll go home, and I don't have a TV and I don't have Wi-Fi in my house, so I'm very zen at home.
Yeah.
And then I'll be in bed by 8 o'clock, and lights will be out by 8:45.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say to some people your age who think, oh, that sounds very monotonous and very boring?
I love it. I love
Good.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think then when I book a holiday, I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
And then it gives you something to work towards. And then when I'm on those holidays, I actually do really switch off.
Yes, yes. But your lifestyle, given you've got a partner as well, is more conducive to that rather than sort of partying three, 4 times a week. It's going to, like your socialising, be more dinners and things like that.
I'll socialise maybe once during the week, and then I'll try, once or twice on the weekends.
Yeah.
But I mean, you become a product of your environment. So I really try and surround myself with people that are driven, and we feed off each other.
Yeah.
That's what gives me energy.
Why do you think anyone who's achieved any degree of success, including you, is an early riser and does some sort of exercise in the morning? Why do you think that is?
I think it's discipline. And it's routine. You don't have to get up at 5. Some people, as I said, work better, and some people go to gym after work.
Yeah.
For me, my brain can't switch off.
Yeah.
So I think, and as well at that time from 5 a.m. to 6:30, my phone doesn't ring.
Yeah.
And it's just time for me. And it's amazing.
But don't you think it can be a bit, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but a bit of an outlet in the sense that you're getting something hard done out of the way early, like let's call it a big rock for the day, for example. That's part of it, and it contributes towards mental health as well.
Oh, yeah. Look, exercise is definitely mental health. I mean, for some people, you don't have to go to the gym. You can just go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's just something to clear your head. That separates me from my work environment to my personal life, and just making sure that then I am looking after myself as well, because it is an extremely draining job.
When you say draining, you mean taking on buyer's anxiety, seller anxiety, that type of thing?
It's the job that gives you the highest of highs and the lowest of lows.
Yeah.
And again, it's all about just staying centered.
Yeah.
And those moments when it is low, it is draining, and you just have to bring yourself back and stay centered and just remember the good times, and everyone will get out of this and it'll be okay.
Yeah. As you know, and part of our coaching together is I'm obsessed with database, and CRMs and everything. Since you've started adopting a task-orientated prospecting approach, how has that worked for you rather than just an arbitrary approach where you just look at your list and think, oh, I think these people deserve a call, rather than, call, note, task, which, I'm obsessed about. How have you found that has helped you?
It just gives me order and structure. And as long as I can see what I need to do and have it, laid out in front of me, and I know what I need to do, makes it much easier. Otherwise, then you start to make excuses. Oh, I don't know whether I need to call them, or I don't know how, I can't remember when the last time I was that I spoke to them. Yeah. Everything is just methodic and it's laid out for me. So I work better like that.
Yeah.
I know some people have their own systems in place, but for me, it's all set up and I know how many tasks I need to tick off for that day. And if I've done that, then, I've achieved my goal for that day.
And obviously that's part of our KPIs as well, is making those calls. But what would you say to someone listening who's like, that doesn't really work for me, tasks. I'd rather just be very fluid and, either do cold calls, door knocking, or maybe ring a couple of past clients, like be less structured. But as you know, that approach, if adopted, will sometimes see a past buy that you sold a house to 2 years ago, or a past appraisal that you were in 6 months ago pop up through another agent. I know that our system's not fully fortified and that still can happen, but less so, right? So what would you say to those people who don't believe in task on their CRM?
I would say try it for 2 weeks, and then they probably won't look back.
And in terms of, if they say to you, well, I have tried it, but what tends to happen is all the tasks build up because I get busy working on listings and sales and vendor management, callbacks and all the urgent stuff. What would you say to them in terms of the lack of urgency given to pipeline nurturing, for example?
I'd just say it's an excuse. I'd say, allocate 30 minutes in your day, 20 minutes in your day. Everyone has that time, whether that be at 5:30 p.m, lunchtime, whatever the time that works. If it's in my diary, I'll do it.
Yes.
If it's not, I forget about it. You get caught up. Someone calls you. You go out to an appointment. The next one, and then you don't get it done, and then it builds up, and then you could get a bit of anxiety because there's too many tasks. I don't know where to start. I don't know what to do. Yeah. So I just allocate it. It's in my diary, just with other appointments, and blockouts for my call sessions. If it's in there, it'll get done.
It's basically an unofficial to-do list, effectively, and people work well on to-do lists. I mean, your email inbox is an unofficial to-do list as well. So,
it's all warm calls.
Yes.
It's not daunting calls.
Yes.
There's a relationship. You've spoken to them before. It's an easier call. You should want to do those calls.
Yes, yes. And what would you say to some agents who are either not calling email inquiries with phone numbers, or when they get a phone inquiry on a property, who don't identify if they are a property owner or not, because think, look, I'm only selling an apartment, therefore it's unlikely I'm going to get owners off it or appraisals off it. Like, in terms of the work we've done together about having that 5 seconds of courage, on each conversation, has it helped you, and what advice would you give those people?
Every inquiry, whether it has a number or not, is getting a reply.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't have a phone number, I'll try my best to be a good detective and see if I can find one. If I can't, I'll just send them an email, and you'll be surprised you actually do get a few replies. With the phone numbers, what I do is I'll call them, and as you said, it's only a hard question if you think it's a hard question. If you just ask them in a casual manner, the way, where are you looking? Are you living locally? Whatever it may be. That's how I built my database. They're not just inquiring on it for fun. They're inquiring on it because they've got an interest in it. They might live on the street. They might not be a seller at the moment, but that's something for your pipeline. They might be a superannuation client, but that's gold.
Maybe not today, but like in 2 years, right?
Yeah.
So do you mind just role-playing that real quick? Sorry to put you on the spot.
Maybe later. Maybe off camera.
Oh, no. Let's do it real quick, because you pretty much said it anyway. But if it is an email inquiry with a phone number and you were to call me, and just if you were like using my dialogue around squeezing the lemon out of each call, like what would it sound like?
I'd just say thank you for your inquiry on the property. What are you looking for? I'll first just ask what they're looking for, because sometimes they might just tell me straight away, I just live on the street. Oh, great. What number?
Right.
Would you look to trade from yours? Are you looking to upsize? Are you looking to downsize? That question, the open-ended questions, I sometimes find actually get really good traction, because they kind of might divulge a little bit more to you. And it's just a friendly conversation. And, would you like to be kept up to date with how the campaign's tracking? And after every conversation that I have with someone, I'll send them a text.
Yeah. Okay. Follow up.
Yeah.
And what about if they were less forthcoming on the call, Kate? Like if they were, just quite short, but you still hadn't identified whether they're an owner or a genuine buyer. Like what's one question you find is something that helps you? Because you mentioned it earlier about like, do you live locally?
I sometimes say, are you living locally? Because I find that it's quite a diverse question.
Yeah. And if they say yes?
If they say yes, I say, oh, great, whereabouts?
Okay, Bondi.
Oh, great, what street?
Penkerville Street.
Great. We actually and I'll try and relate something. So I'm in our office in Bondi, we're
very dominant.
We're market leaders.
Yeah.
So we will have sold something, or I will have known something that sold. I might know someone in the street. I might be going there, and then you can kind of segue into, what their requirements are, what they need. Are they looking? Are they just browsing? And then I'll categorize them, and then I'll say, would you like to be kept up to date with how the campaign's tracking? And then I'll log that, and then in 2 weeks' time, I'll call them, let them know how the campaign's going. And circumstances change all the time.
If you do attempt to identify their own on that first call, would you always ask if they'd like to get an appraisal on that very first call?
Yeah, I would. I would. Okay. I definitely would. I always go in for the kill.
Yeah. And if it's a no, honestly, I'm not looking at selling. It's a investment property which I'm just happy to keep long term. What's your workflow process after that?
So if it's an investment property, they probably don't live there.
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'll ask. I always like to ask, how long is it rented for? Because sometimes if it's nearing the end of the lease, people like to explore the option at least.
Sure. Yeah.
If it's on a rolling lease, then okay, great. Are you interested to know where your property sits at this time?
Yeah.
Sometimes they might just want a desktop valuation, but again, great desktop valuation gives me a reason to call them in 2 weeks. Yeah.
And if it's not a desktop, and I'm like, honestly, I don't think I'll ever sell. What would your workflow process be in terms of when you would call them next?
So what I'd do is I'd log you in my database, and I'd log you in as this is an investment for you.
Yeah.
And if anything sells in the area, I'd probably just shoot you a text.
Okay.
And then maybe 3 months down the track, or if a few things have sold, I'd probably still call you and just say, look, the market's heating up. I know you've said that you don't want to sell.
Yes.
But opportunistically, is there a number that makes sense?
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised how many people say yes.
Yes. Now, this is critical, listeners, what Kate's saying, and it's part of our coaching, which is when you're doing a subsequent follow-up call, always acknowledge the previous conversation.
Yeah.
There's no use saying, oh, look, you're looking to sell. It's like you always have to say, Adrian, I know last time we spoke you weren't looking to sell. However, we just sold or just had listed this. Based on that, do you think that you'd be interested at this stage, or have your circumstances changed at all? And, it only sounds repetitive to us, as I keep telling you guys.
Yeah, and most vendors are getting called by 5, 6, 7 agents a week. So, you've really got to acknowledge the previous conversation, because otherwise they don't know who they're talking to.
Yeah. And assuming you've got my email address as well, is there any automation happening through email?
So we've got through our back-end system categories and what you're classified into, and weekly market updates and new listings, just solds. Yeah. We've got it. Grace does all of that for us.
Yeah. And a lot of people listening to this would say, oh, but you'd get a lot of unsubscribes. But I mean, I know that it's actually a lot less than what you think, isn't it? The unsubscribes. Yeah. You do get a few, but I mean, ultimately, if I owned a $1, $2, $3, $4, $5 million asset, and I'm receiving information based on that.
People love getting
even if they just delete it and look at the next week or the next month or whatever, and it's just another touch point because it's coming from you, and people think Bondi, they think Raine Horne, they think Kate Woods. Like there's always that constant a reminder and awareness piece as well.
Just being front of mind. I think everyone loves receiving. I mean, look, there's obviously the few that don't, but majority of people really enjoy hearing what people are, what properties are going for. And when I go out on the weekend with my friends, the first question is, how's the market? So everyone, it's a topic at everyone's dinner tables.
Yes. What do you say when they ask that? Depends if you're a buyer or seller.
Yeah. Are you in the market?
Are you in the market? Yeah. But it is like we all say, if we had a dollar for every time someone asked that.
Yeah.
Given you've been doing it now for a few years, is there anything, and I'm not talking about regrets, but is there anything that you would have implemented sooner if you could put your head on sort of Kate's shoulders 5 years ago or something?
I think, looking back, I think I've done the best of, what I could do with the resources that I've had at that time. I think, as every year it's evolving, there's new systems in place. But I think, what it really boils down to is relationships. And I think, calling all the OFIs, the Open for Inspection books, I think as well, making all those relationships, again, like hanging out at coffee shops. Probably what I would have done is a little bit more self-promotion.
Right.
Just to get my name out there a little bit more, which we're doing a bit more now. But it's relationships, because even when the market's not great, I mean, those relationships are still sticking. People are still calling you for advice. That doesn't change. And I think, it's the long game. I one of the listings that I've sold, it took 4 years in the making. It was just keeping them updated. I knew they weren't selling, but then all of a sudden circumstances changed and they called me and I went in and I got it uncontested. And I think, so if I could go back in time, or if I could offer a piece of advice to people starting out, it's relationships, and don't expect to see something that, your first listing in 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 8 weeks. It's about building that trust.
In terms of, I talked about rejection a little bit earlier. How do you deal with it? Because obviously it happens every day, every week, or whatever. But it's sometimes it's subtle and sometimes it's extreme. Like where they say, "Look, it was the toss of a coin. You were really great," or it can be really extreme where they actually verbally told you, yes, you're definitely getting the listing, then they don't even call you and you see the sign go up. Like,
I've had that.
Yeah, we've all had. But how do you be honest? Does it sometimes affect you, or you've really learned to master it? Or
I would say 99% of the time, just water off a duck's back.
Okay.
But obviously there is that 1% where maybe I haven't had a good day personally, or something's happened, and it's the straw that broke the camel's back.
Yeah.
It does happen. How do I cope with it? It's fine. You've
become not immune, but you become resilient because you're expecting it. You're expecting it.
Yeah, and I think again, being a female in a male-dominated industry, it's going to happen, and you're going to get compared to people, and you're going to get compared to other agents. And for me, rejection, it's just move on.
Yeah.
Someone was saying the other day, it's Teflon coat. It just bounces.
Teflon.
Yeah. It's fine. I just move on, because, if you get down, then you could lose the next opportunity, and it might be right in front of you. Yeah. So if I lose it, if anything, it's more motivation.
Yes.
And I think, the more balls that you have in the air,
yes,
it still hurts.
Yeah.
It still really hurts. And then I kind of allow myself to be upset for maybe 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'll walk around the block and I'll come back in and I'll lock in and I'll go, all right, we've lost that one. We need to replenish the shelves. So what have we got?
Love it.
Yeah.
But I like what you said. If anything, it's a motivator.
Yeah.
Not a demotivator. But I mean, that's in an ideal world. But yeah, of course, there's going to be times where it does penetrate and affect you. But yeah, I like that, the fact that you're using it as a motivator. But I think the key is manage your own expectations. Yeah. Like, no matter what anyone says, whether it's you or whether it's, number one agent in Australia, like it's a 50%. Most listings people pitch for, they're losing one for everyone they're getting, on average.
Well, if you're not losing, you're not going for enough.
Correct.
Sorry.
Correct. Yeah. What I've observed with you, Kate, is you seem to have very good rapport and relationships with your competitors. Is that something by design or default? Or
I think default, to be honest.
How has it happened organically like that? I mean, were you friends with them before, or you just during? Yeah,
no, just during. Just during. I think through networking and through friends of friends all coming together. I guess as well, we all have similar passions because we're all in the same industry. So there is obviously a connection in that sense. And I think it's really good because sometimes it's all competitive, and I don't
like
really
I don't have
that.
Competition.
Yeah, I don't have that. And we boost each other up. And again, it's not really you got this, I didn't get this. Sometimes we do go up against each other in the same listings. And I beat a competitor to one the other day and he let me know. And, it was just friendly banter.
Yeah.
But I think, as well, like you become a product of your environment. So we're all hanging out together. We've all got similar interests. Our schedules are all quite similar.
Yeah.
We've all got similar priorities. So I think by default, definitely not by design, but I am very grateful for the network and the friendships that I do have.
It is modest of you though, because it's partly by design, because you've chosen to have an abundance mentality as opposed to a scarcity mentality, which does help. And also you've chosen to be better, not bitter, against agents that you can lose listings to, because I must say you are in the minority. There are, as you know, there's a lot of agents that will badmouth others, will lose a listing. And
life's too short, and the industry, as you learn, as you're in it, the longer longer you're in it, it's so small.
Yeah.
It is so small.
Yeah,
and you can, I've built this reputation up, and in 30 seconds, it can all be destroyed.
Yeah.
So it's just not worth it. Well, not for me.
Yeah. What's one of the benefits, though, of that, of having good rapport and good relationships with other agents, like personally and professionally? What do you think some of the benefits are?
I've got great friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and it's really hard to find.
Yeah.
And people that actually have your back. And I'd say, you're very kind and said that I, have a lot of friends. I wouldn't say I have a lot of friends. I'd say I have a lot of really good quality friends, but
that's what I
not
meant.
that
That's
many,
what I meant.
right?
Yeah.
But in saying that, every friend that I have, I know that if I was ever in trouble, I could call them, and they would help me.
Yeah.
And I think, again, just being in a network of people who are on the same schedule as you. When we go out for dinner on a Saturday night, can we get the 6 o'clock reservation, please? And we're all on board.
Yeah. But do you think also that it's because of reciprocity, in the sense that if you're not talking badly about your competitors, in fact, the opposite, you're talking positively to a client about a competitor, that they would do the same thing to you? Is that what's happening?
To be honest, I don't think about that.
Okay.
And I would never talk down of someone. I'd hate if someone did that to me. I would never do that to someone. I just don't think it makes you look good as an agent either. You've got to be able to sell yourself. It doesn't matter who's in the door. They're choosing you for you.
Yeah. But it must happen then that you're talking positively and they're talking positively about you. Yeah, because otherwise it would be the opposite and you would know about it. So I think that's a very good thing. In terms of, like you mentioned the word relationships a few times there. Have you seen it from when you first got into it a few years ago? Have you seen the industry change a little bit in terms of, just make 100 calls versus, hang on, I'd rather make 12 calls because, as you said earlier, there's like half a dozen agents ringing the same people, and it's about the one that is building a relationship rather than just a data point as such. Have you seen that even become more important, especially after COVID, for example, become more important, that relationships are more important than the frequency of contact or loyalty even, for example, like really creating that trust and rapport? Yeah,
I'd say, when you first start, look, you do need to build that database, and that does look like locking yourself in a room and dialing for dollars.
Yeah.
But as you grow your network over time, you start to build your own database, and that then needs to be nurtured. And those conversations do tend to take a little bit more time, but they're more quality conversations. I think as well, now I just keep getting this screening services on phones. So people don't even have to take your calls.
What's that, sorry?
So if you call people, it'll say, please say why you're calling.
Oh, right.
And then you say why you're calling, and then it will say, and then it will pass on the message to the receiver on the other line, and they'll choose whether to accept or decline. So I think...
Is that part of the new Apple upgrade, is it?
I don't know. Right. It's not on every call, but I think, now people are time poor. So I think, you have to acknowledge from the first call how that vendor would like to be communicated with. Are they a text person? Are they a call person? Are they an email person? Are they, busy working 9 to 5 and only want to be called after hours? I think as soon as you acknowledge that, then there's a relationship and rapport that's built straight away, because, you understand, why would you be calling me in the middle of the day when you know I'm in meetings? So I think for me, that's definitely something that I have tasked for people to say, they're a school teacher. contact them after hours, or, they're working at one of the big banks, call them after 6 o'clock, or I know they start work at 9. They like to be called on the way on the bus to work. So that's also really important, because otherwise you'll be calling someone 5 times in the middle of the day and why would they take your call?
Yeah, of course. So what does a relationship look like when you do build one in terms of a pipeline seller that is not looking to sell immediately, but obviously will one day? In addition to just letting them know about just listed, just sold, what are some other topics that you would bring up in one of those conversations, assuming they're open to having a conversation? Yeah.
I like to know. Sometimes they'll just tell you, I've got 2 kids. One of them, I go to Nippers on a Sunday morning, or make a note. How was Nippers? Or was at an athletics carnival, or I just came back from a holiday, or I'm just going on a holiday. Oh, great! When are you back? Right. And then I'll task that. And then when I call them next time, I'll say, "How was your trip?" It's just a little bit of a point of difference. It takes 2 seconds. Just make notes.
Yeah. And this is part of the relationship building.
Yeah, part of the relationship building. Yeah.
And if one of your competitors is not paying that attention to detail, or not really caring, because what I'm sensing from you is you're asking those questions, but you actually genuinely care as well. Yeah.
Because if
I think that's obvious too.
Well, yeah, and if we can take an interest in something, how great's that?
Yeah. Do you think affability is underrated, in the sense that if someone likes you, they're more likely to list or buy through you?
Yeah, I do. I'd love to get a seat at the table when they're making that decision, because obviously I understand people need to do their homework. Yeah. But I think, if you can connect with them on a level that another agent is just surface, it's definitely going to give you the upper hand when it comes down to making that decision. And, if you're sitting at that table saying, I've done everything that I can, it's
because it is true that you've got, as part of the listing process, you've got like the product knowledge side, the branding side, the USP side, but then on the other end, you've got like, likability, trustability, just your eye contact, repeating someone's name. Do you think they're equally as important?
Yeah. Like as a combination, it's fantastic. It's only going to do you great.
Yeah. And what, at a typical listing appointment, do you think you're stronger like on this one in terms of the affability and rapport building side, or stronger on the branding, marketing, USP side?
I'd say I'd use them together.
Right.
I'd say I'm probably equally as strong on both of them.
Yeah.
There is probably the odd chance that you do just get the call in, and there's sometimes not enough time to actually make that connection with them. Yeah. But, go into that house, have a look. Majority I was in an appointment today and I go, I went to school with him.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just little things, or, you might see a badge on the wall, or you might see a piece of art on the wall, or you might see, something that you have at your house, and just that little bit of connection, just something different that will set you apart from the rest and kind of create, I guess, break down that first barrier.
Yeah. And not that you'd be a chameleon on each listing appointment, but would you slightly nuance your strategy if we talked about the 2 extremes, so like a 83-year-old widow or a 40-year-old CEO? Would your energy and an approach be slightly different?
Yeah. You have to understand who you're going to see. I also like to understand whether they're data-driven, or, whether they like, stories, or whether, after an open home with a vendor, after I've sat down and assessed what they like, they might only need who came through and who's a contract holder. They might not need the whole thing because they don't have enough time.
Yeah.
But if you go in screaming and fast-paced to an 83-year-old, they might not even understand what you're saying. So you've got to sit down and assess and tailor each presentation to who you're sitting in the living room with.
Yeah. Okay. Would you say that one of the most important things in terms of the coaching we've been doing, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but only because I know that you've mentioned it to before, but like the set to sell meeting, has that been something that's been a game changer for you?
Yeah.
Definitely. Tell us a little bit more about your approach and what our coaching involves with the set to sell.
Well, I probably took them on, 5 years ago. That would have been a really difficult conversation for me to have with someone. But as, we've been working together and I've been, becoming my own agent, it's a key to the success.
Yeah.
And then your vendor's in line, you're in line, everyone's on the same page.
Yeah.
We're all working together. We're having these conversations earlier to help everyone and get a better understanding of where we're at and what the plan looks like moving forward. I mean, there's nothing worse than, listing a property and 2 weeks in, they go, oh, where are we at?
Without giving all your secrets away, what are 2 agenda items on your set to sell meeting?
Okay, we're going in there. Okay.
Yeah. Just 2 of them, like just generally.
On my set to sell meeting, I will bring some comparisons of what's been listed and what's been sold, because by the time that you've signed a property up versus the time sometimes you actually go online, a lot can happen.
Sure.
The market can get reset. There can be some crazy sales. It might be worth more. Yeah. So I'll take that and we'll have a conversation, and then we will just outline where we would like, how we would like the property to start, how we would like the opens to go, and then I will also set up time on a Monday where I will let them know that I will send them the statistics.
Yes.
And then on a Tuesday, I'll set up a time with them to say, this is when you'll get your vendor reports. And then I'll probably also make another appointment with them a week down the track, face to face. And I'll say, let's just pencil this in. We'll sit down face to face and we'll assess how we're going. So then everyone knows that we've made that meeting and everyone knows what the agenda is of that meeting. That's a few things of what I would do.
That's why it's sometimes referred to as the expectation meeting, because basically that's all we're doing is creating the expectation.
And it's probably that half an hour, 45 minutes that can actually transform your campaign.
What's been another key takeaway with our coaching together, like that's shifted your business a little bit or even just helped you personally?
I would just say the accountability is definitely one, and I would say the set to sell, but then I'd also say that, just going back to basics, because sometimes you just get really caught up, and just going back to basics and do not deviate from processes. That's what I take from.
That's my words echoing in your head, right?
Yeah. I would say that because, some people, it's really easy to get caught up. And you just take a step back and go, no, we've got a process. It works. It's proven. Just stick to it.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you said that, because whenever you do call me, it's always like, okay, let's just take a deep breath. Let's do an audit. Okay, let's review our process. Have we deviated, yes or no? And usually if we're off track, the answer is yes. And it's like, that's okay. Let's just not do that next time. There's the lesson. Which is great. I mean, a lot of people, would have an ego and wouldn't want to accept that. They wouldn't want to learn from it. So you're very gracious and modest in that respect. As we start to wrap up, Kate, it's been great. Like some really good takeaways. Someone in your position at the moment, female, male, whatever they are, if either they're not getting the guidance to learn how to list and vendor manage, because we've talked about that at the beginning, about they're probably 2 of the, I wouldn't say the most difficult, but probably the least encouraged by a lot of lead agents, okay? And sometimes intentionally and sometimes unintentionally. What would you say to them to try and accelerate their career? What advice can you give them to, if they really want to try and master listing and vendor management, which are the 2, probably the 2 hardest things, if you like, to actually get your head around?
So I would say look, I'm very grateful. I've got a team that really helps me, so I can go and ask them for questions. But obviously I understand not everyone has that support system, or people might be working in a boutique office and they don't really have people that they can lean on. There's so many podcasts out there. There's so many books out there. It's just an excuse. I mean, I remember I used to practice cold calling in the shower, just over and over and over and over again. There's, if there's all these free products out there as well. There's podcasts just like this. There's 25 other podcasts as well that just listen to them, take something away from them and practice.
So would you say, like for the lack of a better term, exposure therapy though, like in terms of just throwing yourself into a listing appointment, even if you lose it, that's fine, but you're never going to know until you actually, because a lot of people want perfection, and therefore perfection gets in the way of getting started. Do you know what I mean?
I'm a perfectionist. Like I definitely, if something is I've got an attention to detail, and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So I get that. But everyone starts somewhere. And it's not going to be pretty the first time.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's, you've tick that off and you move on to the next one, and the next one will be better, and the next one will be better, and the next one will be better. But if you don't start, you can't become better. And I guess then you just become too reliant on other people, and you need to do it by yourself.
But should they encourage or even potentially hassle their lead agent to try and, be exposed to as many listing appointments and vendor meetings and set to sell meetings, reserve meetings as possible, just to be a fly on the wall?
They should. I personally think that they should be at every meeting.
Yeah.
They don't have to speak. They can just be there holding the paperwork, but mentally they're taking notes.
Yeah.
And that's how I learned.
There you go.
And I think, if then, you book an appointment and, you want to go with your boss, okay, go with your boss, but then say, hey, can I lead the start of the appointment and you do the close?
Yeah.
And then it'll just, from there on, you don't have to do the whole thing. Just do one part. And then from that, you talk about the marketing, or you talk about, you make the connection at the start, or you wrap things up. You talk about the next time we're going to get in contact with them, and it'll just evolve.
What's one thing you think you've learned with the vendor management side of things compared to when you first started doing vendor management? Like some of the things that really have helped you in the vendor management, because it is a game of psychology, right? Like the owner's sort of saying this, the buyers are saying that, but by the end of the campaign, common sense tends to prevail on most occasions. What's something you think that you have improved on in the vendor management side of things?
I think it's also it's a lot of empathy as well. I mean, it's we do 5, 6, 7 vendor managements a week.
Yeah.
They'll do maybe one in their life.
Yes.
So you have to understand that it's not a process that they go through every day. And you really sometimes just have to take a step back, and you have to understand where they're coming from. And you have to get on their level, and maybe they need data, maybe they need a few more weeks. You have to tailor each campaign to the needs of the vendor. And I think as you get older, you understand, and you understand what people are going through and how you can tailor that. Whereas I think at the start you just go, just going to follow this process and it'll all be the same. No, it's not.
And why is daily communication so important with vendor management?
I mean, I do multiple times a day, but you work for them, and I'd rather over communicate with someone than under communicate. But they need to know where they're at. They need to know if we're moving the auction forward, why are we doing that? Who's coming? Or if we need to sell it now. Okay, but we've explained to them this is why we need to do this, and this is why we're going to take this offer now. But at the end of the day, it always comes back to what they want, and we're employed by them.
Yeah, one thing I observed with you, Kate, is that sometimes you thought a conversation was going to be tough, but we talked through it before, and you make it and call me back and go, that actually wasn't that hard.
Yeah.
Right. Why do you think that is? Because you've ruminated on it too much in your head and made more of a deal about it than you think? Or is it because the owner actually really wanted to hear it in the first place?
I'm an overthinker, so I like to play out every scenario. I mean, when I used to cold call, I'd play out the cold call, and then they wouldn't even answer the phone. So it was a bit of a waste. But again, I think you just have to remember that they've hired you and they want your advice, and you're giving them your advice. And what you thought was a tough conversation actually might not be a tough conversation, because on their end, it's working together, and you work together, and it's not a hurdle. It's actually just really good communication, and you get on the same page, and 9.5 times out of 10, it's not a tough conversation. It's just that you've worked it to be a tough conversation.
Correct. Yeah. And I often call it providing indiscriminate news, because that's what other trusted advisors do, doctors, lawyers, accountants. They'll provide indiscriminate news, but let's say it's not so good news, there's always a solution or a recommendation that follows it as well.
Nothing's perfect. There's light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, there's I don't know exactly what the percentage is from last week, but properties that sold, and they sold after auction, or they passed in and then they sold. So I think no campaign is perfect.
Yeah.
So it's just it's just keeping the momentum going throughout the campaign, and staying excited, and it's amazing. We've got this listing. Let's do what we can to get the best price.
Yeah. As again, we're going to wrap up shortly, but in terms of your career goals, what are your short term, sort of 3 to 5 year career goals?
The goal is to eventually, it's just to build my name and build profile.
Yep.
And I guess, for me, a measure of success for me is actually how many call-ins I get.
Yes.
Because that's people reaching out, going out of their way, calling me, choosing me for me. And I think as well, just I'd say just really becoming my own agent.
Yes.
And then, possibly down the track, it's probably longer than 5 years, but building my own team and,
Yes.
becoming a mentor for other people, and giving back.
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
That's for me.
Beautiful. And just the last question is, you do display a lot of humility within the industry and just in your dealings with clients. Does that come natural to you? Is it something you got to work on? Does sometimes ego creep in and you've got to dismiss it, or this is your personality, sort of on and off the field generally?
I feed off people's energy.
You feed off people's energy. Yeah.
And having conversations with people. I've always been a team player. I played soccer for 15 years.
Oh, really?
It's always about winning in a team and understanding people and learning how to read people. I think I'm born with it.
Yeah,
which is great. It's a blessing.
Yeah. So you think soccer helped a lot with real estate as well?
Definitely. I mean, that's another network that I have.
Yeah.
And it's something that I can go and do all over the world, meet new people.
Yeah.
And have a connection on another level.
Yes. But the discipline of training, the discipline of teams, the discipline of
the winning, the losing,
the
drawing, which we don't really have that here, but it just taught me a lot and taught me a lot about how to read people, because as a team, you're only as good as your weakest link, right?
Did you have a chance to go on and play professionally at all, or?
I did represent the country twice. Once when I was 13, and then once when I was just over 18 or 19.
Yeah.
It was great, but I just, again,
what made you not pursue it further?
It's I don't want to say it's hard, but it's again, female soccer is amazing. What the Matildas are doing is amazing. At the time, I couldn't balance everything at the same time.
Right.
The games, like for the women to play professionly, we had to go to the Blue Mountains. It was just, I didn't have the time. But if I could go back, I'd probably want to look into it for a little bit longer. But no, I'm very happy where I am now. And at least, I get to do it occasionally and socially, which is good.
Yeah. But the Matildas basically put women's sport back on the map. Like everyone jumped on that bandwagon, right?
It is amazing to see what they've done in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
And what they will do in the next couple of years as well.
But that must be depth through schools as well, right? Because you must have started playing at school or clubs.
I club.
Clubs.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I did it outside of school, but then with some schoolmates, and then after schoolmates, then you do it with some uni friends, and it's all different networking, which is just amazing. Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm still friends with them now, which is great.
Well, that's a great alumni to have. Yeah. Kate, it's been awesome to have you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate having you, and it's been great to catch up, and we'll see you next week at our coaching session.
See you then.
Okay. Thanks, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay.